Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I'm Corinda Crosdell. I'm Deputy County Executive for Health and Human Services, and I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming you all this afternoon to our virtual ARPA session. So this is the fourth and final of our 4 public feedback sessions here in Monroe County. And this is to create a plan to invest our $144 million to our community. Our 3 previous public outreach sessions in Greece, the city of Rochester, and Pittsburgh were all successful. And we're pleased that you guys joined us here this afternoon. I want to take a moment to thank our Congressman Joe Morelli, our Senators Chuck Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand for their efforts in securing this funding. These American Rescue Plan dollars will be transformative. And if we want to get the biggest bang for our buck, we believe that we all need to work together. We need to make a thoughtful and transparent plan, and we need to strategically invest these funds. And we can't do that without you, without your input, and we feel that your feedback is going to be critical. In a few minutes, we're going to have Rebecca Keiko, Monroe County's Deputy Director of Planning and Development, provide a short presentation that will explain how we got here this afternoon. She'll talk about the work that is going into our Bring Monroe Back plan, our timeline for spending, and how we're working with the community to get feedback. But before that, I want to take a few minutes to share how truly important your feedback is to Monroe County. Each of you has taken valuable time out of your life to be here, and I know you're here because you care. You care about the future of our community, and you want to make sure that we're being smart and strategic on how we invest these dollars. Because Monroe County has big questions to answer, such as, will our families want to build a future here? Will there be good jobs for our children? Does everyone have an equal opportunity? Each of you has a say in the answers by helping us shape this extraordinary ARPA investment. So today we're going to have 6 virtual breakout sessions, each of which will focus on one of the ARPA funding priorities: public safety, public health and wellness, economic recovery, workforce development, infrastructure improvements, and sustainability. You can select any session you'd like to speak at to provide feedback on these topics. And at the end of today's session, our team will report back on what they've heard. Once again, I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and I'd like to introduce Rebecca Keiko, who will give a brief presentation on ARPA funds before we move to our breakout sessions. Rebecca?
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to hope that that's a yes. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We have a number of folks still joining and coming in as we're all talking. So hopefully there aren't any issues as that comes along, but feel free to put messages in. We have a number of facilitators to help us today to make sure that we are all moving forward. So as Deputy Executive, the County Executive mentioned, this is an extraordinary moment in time where we are able to really have an opportunity to decide how to make it a true investment in our community. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I make sure that I have the right screen up. How long have we been doing this? And I still fumble with this every month, once in a while. Does everybody see the Bring Monroe Back?
We do. We do. It's not in presenter mode.
Oh, you're looking at the different screen then. Let's try this. How do I make, okay, let me try. Sorry, everybody.
Under slideshow?
I did put that. It just, if I have 2 screens and it seems to be picking the wrong screen, so I can't seem to quite figure out how. So sorry, guys. Let's try this.
Okay. There you go.
There we go.
The right one?
Yep.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. All right, so we'll get started here. The Bring Monroe Back is the concept that we're working with. We're asking folks to really think through how do we have an opportunity to spend $144 million and make sure that that is a lasting impact in our community. Let's start with the basics. The American Rescue Plan Act offered Monroe County, the punchline for this is $144 million to spend to really address the inequities and the issues that came up and were highlighted during the pandemic. What we are trying to do is make sure that we seek input from the community. Everybody has been impacted in different ways. We have a large community that we're working with, and we want to make sure that we make this count. We do have some limitations as to how we can spend that money from the federal government. We have 6 areas that we can spend that on. As you can see, public health, services to disproportionately impacted communities, infrastructure, economic impact, premium pay, and revenue replacement. We are lucky enough in Monroe County that we do not anticipate having to utilize this funding to replace revenue. We are going to be looking to focus the spending on this to address the inequities that clearly were identified during the pandemic, and make sure that the next time we have this type of a crisis, ideally, there will be systems in place to help realign some of those systems to make sure that everybody isn't impacted in such dramatically different ways. When we started this project, we determined that we don't have to start from scratch. We have a number of reports that people have spent quite literally thousands of hours working on, looking at our community individually and identifying where we need to improve ourselves, and specifically what are recommendations that they gave us that we can use to improve our community. So this was over the summer in August or so that we took a snapshot in time. We took 12 community reports, and we found that there were 6 recommendations, 6 themes rather, that were identified and consistent throughout those 12 reports. You'll see a list of those reports that we referenced at the end of this slideshow, but we have those 6 focus areas that we're going to be using as the way that we communicate with the public now. So in a few moments, you'll see we're going to ask folks to really zoom into those 6 focus areas and offer their insight as to how and what that priority might look like in the spending of $144 million for our county. We're communicating with everyone we started this in October, and the feedback session of this will last until the end of December. We have a survey, a public survey that approximately 2,500 people, last time I checked a couple of days ago, had completed online. That's something that you are welcome to fill out. It's approximately 7 questions, and it's a high-level review of what are the priorities based upon these 6 focus areas, and also how has the pandemic directly impacted you and your loved ones and family. The second way that we are interacting with the public is through exactly what you're doing right now, which is this virtual forum. We've already conducted 3 in-person forums, and then this is now our final public forum that we are conducting. We are asking folks to offer their insight through basically we're going to be using a whiteboard in a few minutes and asking you to participate, and then we will keep track of that information. And when we are in the analysis stage of this data, all of that information will be incorporated into the review. The third piece is through what we're calling a community partner testimony. And that gives folks an opportunity to write in 2 pages, typed, much more in-depth, your ideas, your thoughts, your concerns, your specific ways that you think that our community can spend that money. Keeping in mind that the city of Rochester has approximately $211 million as well. The city of Rochester School District has an additional bucket of money that they, over 200 million, they are also having access to for ARPA funds. So part of this endeavor is to make sure that we are working closely with our partners in government to make sure that we are not duplicating services, that we are reinforcing the goals and the work that we're all trying to do. This is truly a moment in time that we're trying to capture, and we're trying to invest in our community in a way that we have not been able to do so in, certainly in many of our lifetimes. Throughout this whole process, equity and inclusion is the foundation of how we are approaching this outreach process. We have identified 12 specific communities that are traditionally underserved and unheard. And so we have hired somebody who is actually going to be one of our facilitators this evening. And she has done a warrior's job of going out into the community to make sure that we're not relying on people coming to us, that we are creating a table for them at their table that they have already established, and we're popping in, as we're calling it, to those events. You can see on the screen here, we're aiming to present hopefully 2 separate times to each of these 12 communities through their meetings, their events, their forums, and we are showing up with our materials and asking for their input. This is a little, I guess, as of today, outdated, because today is the last day for the virtual forum. When we are asking for your community statement, this is really just as to reinstate, this is for anybody who wants to spend a little bit more time and really engage in an exercise of sharing in depth how you think we can spend this money. While 144 million is a lot of money, as you can look at those 12 reports, that money will go very, very quickly. There is a lot of need in our community, and we are doing our best to make sure that whatever we invest in is a long-term solution and is sustainable beyond the 5 years that we have to spend with this money. This is not money that's coming back to us. We have a window of time to invest, and what we're trying to do is focus on the groups that have been most impacted by this experience and finding ways to fix the system. We're looking for systems change and not just program sustaining. We're not just looking to make sure that programs keep going, but rather how do we change the way we do business so that in the future, positive impacts will be seen more. In our timeline. So as we know, right now, we're in the middle of the public feedback session. We are continuing to collect information until the end of this year, so this month. January through March is when those of us in the county get to work and really pull all of that information together, figure out what it is that the community has spoken and said to us, and try to come up with a detailed plan to propose to the community and to propose to make a decision as to how we are going to start spending that money. At that point, we will create buckets of spending in some fashion, and we will be communicating with the community again. And when there are opportunities for the community to apply for grants, we will send those requests for proposals out through the community forums, through emails, on our website. We will make a splash to make sure that everybody is aware of what it is that we're looking for when you're applying for funds from ARPA. April through June, we anticipate being able to review those proposals and announcing awards at the end of that second quarter. And then from the third quarter on, July of 2022, the work will begin. And so that's when we hope to fund those proposals. And then through December of 2026, that's when the work is going to get done. There's regular reporting obligations that will be required. And we will be tracking through annual reports and tracking through any grantees that may be successful in applying for these funds. Why does your voice matter? It's clear there's over 100 of you joining today, or at least that's how many RSVP'd, which is incredible. What we have is an opportunity for individuals, families, and businesses to offer their input and their insight as to how they could see the value of that money impacting their communities. We're asking you to participate in that. If you don't speak up, we won't know what your thoughts are, and we can't serve you in the best way. We are also trying to make sure that equity for the underserved and the adversely affected groups are served, are specifically identified and addressed through this funding. And obviously, it helps bring Monroe back together. Cute, right? Here are our reports. These are the 12 reports. This is not an exhaustive list of the reports that have entered our spectrum. There are additional reports that came out. Actually, some of them came out even after we sort of took a moment in time. There are many reports in the community. At a certain point, we had to draw a line as to where we were going to look. We asked you take a look at those reports. If there are recommendations within there that you have a particular passion around, fill out your community statement, utilize your coalitions and your groups that you're already a part of, ask them and bring them together to fill out a community statement to have a large impact and bring those voices together so that we at the county level can hear what you're saying, can understand what you're saying, and make sure that we do our best to incorporate that into a larger plan. And that's it. That's our plan. That's how we got here. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are going to facilitate this virtual forum. So full disclosure, this is the first time that we're doing something this large. And so please bear with us. If we have some hiccups along the way, our apologies. And the goal is that everybody will have an opportunity to speak and to share their input. If you feel as if you're not being heard, you're more than welcome to email us at bringmonroeback at monroecounty.gov. We are monitoring that email on a regular basis. That's where you can submit your community statements as well. We are keeping track of that and keeping it up to date as best as we can. So please, if you don't feel as if you're able to communicate effectively through this process, feel free to use that community statement as a mechanism to communicate with us as well. Okay. The way that you're going to communicate is not in this main session, but we're going to exercise a breakout room function. So on your screen right now, you will see, hopefully, a breakout room icon on the bottom of your screen. If you don't, you should be able to click the More button, and you should be able to see breakout rooms as an option. We have established 6 breakout rooms for you to be able to navigate throughout. You can see them named. Those are the 6 focus areas. You should hopefully have some familiarity with those. These focus areas were also included in a one-page Word document that was included in the invitation that was sent to you either yesterday or today. That worksheet will give you a little bit more in-depth understanding as to what are the kinds of topics that we're including in each of those 6 focus areas. So feel free to take a look at that document as you're navigating these breakout rooms. In addition, in the breakout rooms, we will be asking you to offer your insight for 3 specific questions. Of the topic that you're in, where do you think that particular topic ranks out of the other 6 investment areas and other 6 focus areas? The second question that we will be asking you to offer insight on is, what do you think are the highest priority needs within this focus area? From this list that's provided on that worksheet, or they can be something else. And then the last question that we're asking you to offer insight on is, are there any other specific projects or ideas that you think that Monroe County should consider funding within this focus area? Once you join these focus areas, you will be in a room that you can come and go as you see fit. So you don't have to stay in one particular breakout room the entire session. You can go in, you can listen, see what everybody has to say, offer your 2 cents. We'll be asking you to offer it through the chat box feature just to keep some of the noise that may occur down a little bit. There will be 2 facilitators in that room. One who will be sort of verbally moderating the room to make sure that we're getting everybody and everybody's comfortable and understands what they're supposed to be doing. And then there's a second person who will more likely be a bit more of a silent facilitator. And they will be copying and pasting your questions or your thoughts from the chat box, which you can see right over here. You can just click on that and send it to the group within your breakout room. And then from there, they will copy and paste it onto what we're calling it's a Miro board, which is really just a virtual whiteboard. And that will be shared on the screen with you once you get into the breakout room. If you want to leave that room and go to a different room, you can see this little here, it says leave room. You will be given the option to go back into the main session room, and then you will see the option to then go back into a different breakout room. Okay. So hopefully that answers some questions. Let's see. At this point, you're welcome to submit your questions through the chat. And I'm going to stay in the main session. So if folks get a little lost or confused along the way, I should be able to help get you where you need to be. But the sessions are open and you are welcome to join them now and bounce around and move around as you see fit. Towards the end of the session of this meeting, I will bring everybody back to the main session and we will do a review of what was discussed in each of the 6 breakout rooms. And with that, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'm going to just very quickly, first of all, acknowledge that this was an incredible moment for us as a county to try to bring all of these folks together in this type of technology. This is not something that we have attempted in the past. And so thank you all for joining us and being our community guinea pigs as we figured out this technology and tried to find a way to effectively work with all of you and listen to you during this important moment in time. I very quickly want to show everybody that information about ARPA and about Bring Monroe Back can all be found, all of the studies, all of the surveys, the community statement, anything you might need to know about it can be found on our homepage. And I'm hopefully sharing that with you, I hope. Hopefully you're seeing the homepage.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Rochelle. Good. So just to show you, if you click on this little icon here, that's the Bring Monroe Back icon. And within that, you can see, you can take your survey. There's the testimony from the community organizations in there. Here's the list of all of the 12 reports that we reviewed in anticipation and development of this session. So please take a look, poke around, but that's where the information is. With that, I am going to now share my screen for that Miro board that everybody has been working on. This is what everyone has been working toward. I am now going to jump into the very first board that I see on my screen, which is public safety. So I'm going to zoom in and I am going to ask Faye and Sharon to help walk us through, perhaps not reading every post-it, but give us a rundown of what the conversation revolved around and how it went, please.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much to everybody who came over and chatted with us on public safety. We had so many great ideas and just so much good dialogue about the topic. So thank you so much. For everybody who came, a lot of people ranked it as being high or sort of towards the middle. Nobody thought that it was on the lower end of the focus areas. So that was interesting and compared to some of our other community forums. As far as the highest priority needs, some of those included violence and homicide prevention, our youth programs. We had someone who thought interpreting services was something that we could really focus on in the future. And we had a couple people who mentioned our 911 and mental health services for some things that we could focus on. That also carries over into our projects and ideas. We had a lot of really great, really well thought out projects and ideas. Of those, some of the topics that came up repeatedly were reallocating funds to mental health services and having mental health professionals on shifts with our police officers. That came up multiple times in our discussions today. So I just want to reiterate that for the group. We also had some people who thought that as our policing and other programs are becoming more diverse in terms of gender, that we need to have facilities created for them. So that's something to consider. Some of our services are duplicated among different programs and municipalities. So an opportunity to share those services in the future, we should consider opportunities for that. We need to deal more with poverty that underlies violence in our community, and we'll certainly endeavor to do that. One person had some ideas about looking at the Housing First support movement for the homeless, establishing a Monroe County office for the deaf and hard of hearing to work with public safety in the future. Also, somebody had an idea for an online application for all of county services, including public assistance. They also want us to do a better job of coordinating youth-based programs across many providers, including the city. We also had somebody who thought that we could do a youth conservation program where youth engage in habitat restoration or other projects in the parks, which would be a great idea. And some other people just thought that it would be really nice if our police officers went away from some of our more like code enforcement or administrative duties and really focused on working within our community. So again, really great ideas. Thank you so much to everybody who came to our forum. And we're really looking forward to looking at these more in depth. Have a great day.
Thank you. I am going to wait and give public health and wellness because that is always the most involved topic. So let's move to workforce development. Let's see, I think we have Maggie and Cynthia.
And I just said that all muted. I'm sorry, I've been coughing, so I put myself on mute. But thank you so much for coming today. So with my group, a lot of the attendees felt that the workforce development, it fell either the highest or somewhat in the middle, top 1 or 2, or somewhere in the middle. So the highest priority they felt was to remove barriers from workers. They felt that childcare and transportation are necessary in order for people to be successful, and they need train for pay. So while they're training, they should receive some type of stipend, some type of funds that will assist them during that time that they don't have any income from employment. Retainment and recruitment was big. Investments in programs, with human services. There's not enough mental health workers, and there's definitely not enough diversity. And it's also finding ways to better serve BIPOC people. As someone said, Rochester is a tale of 2 cities. So there's a shortage of opportunities and resources. And if there are resources, sometimes people aren't aware of the opportunities because an example that was given, it might be on one radio station and the community may be listening to a different radio station, so they won't hear about that opportunity. Also, workers don't take advantage of supports, sometimes because there are breakdowns in communication. Some of the ideals for projects and ideals were connect people in recovery with stable employment and opportunities. And once again, the line of thought was pay as you train programs. Organizations that become second chance organizations, could there be funding used to pay the difference between minimum wage and a livable wage? more job training in high school and more internships. And this one, someone said, look at the clean sector to create jobs that people in our own area can obtain. I guess there's people that come from out of our area and get those jobs, but because we don't have training programs available for local people. Create a workforce development roundtable for agencies and reduce the stigma around job training versus college. And once again, wrap around support programs.
Great. Thank you so much, Cynthia and Maggie, for pulling it all together and everybody's input. I'm mindful of the time. I recognize that it is 1:26 by my phone. If you need to leave, we understand. We do anticipate sharing this data in some format with the whole community, probably sometime mid-January, mid to late January. But if you are able to stay with us, we'd love to keep you here with us. And with that, let's move on to infrastructure improvements. Let's see if I can get
All right,
this.
thank you, Rebecca. Our infrastructure improvements for many folks ranked either high or medium. Some people said high was a reason for infrastructure because they thought it was the perfect use for one-time funding like this because it would create a longer and more sustainable impact. Other people ranked it a high priority, but said that its ability to impact the other areas like public safety, public health and wellness, or sustainability are also what would make it high because it would be able to impact multiple areas. So that's things like health and wellness would be increasing, and now I'm moving on to our purple section, our broadband access. We had, we wrote ×5 on this as people came in and shared the need to improve high-speed broadband access in all areas of the county and for all communities. So it doesn't matter where you live, what your background is, the people felt that you should have access to high-speed, affordable internet. There was also the desire to have sidewalk repairs or street lights or more walkability, affordable housing. A lot of folks spoke about bicycle or trail infrastructure and its ability to become connected and become actual transportation rather than recreation. That the money should be used to replace our current infrastructure with sustainable infrastructure where possible. So if we're doing something to replace it, are we able to make sure that that thing that's replacing it is green and sustainable? And then that would include energy efficient upgrades to our buildings like solar panels and other things like that, and working with the Rochester Transportation System or RTS buses to use green buses. There was also the desire to see some changes to our water and sewer systems, including any lead pipe replacement or abatement that could be done, and to make sure that we are replacing systems when there are frequent breakdowns. We also had a comment about expanding video relay equipment and create communication opportunities for the deaf throughout the county in public spaces and public facilities. Then when we move to our specific project ideas, people would like to see additional bus amenities, including shelters and stops, as well as selling some of our larger buses and replacing them with smaller, more frequent buses, and increase the number of stops for some of our spaces that have less usage. People have indicated a total upgrade of public lighting to LED lighting would be a good use, and as well as some upgrades to our parks. And there's some very specific examples around parks that have been on preservation lists, as well as the creation of a east-west multi-use trail to complement our current north-south trail. We also had some, again, some of our suggestions around updating and improving our water infrastructure and creating low-cost or free internet for communities across the county. Having more parks or more trees planted in our parks and parks in our disadvantaged communities. The concept of creating VRS or video relay services in phone booth-like structures in places like libraries, town halls, government buildings to allow the deaf and hard of hearing population to be able to use those facilities to communicate as well, and using our workforce development to increase our horticulture and landscape work and a couple of other places like that. So that's a general summary. There certainly was more rich conversation, but we want to keep it sort of tight given our time constraints.
Thank you, BJ. And Quinn, for your efforts here. All right, let's see. So we are now, oh, this got modified a bit. Let's see. We are in sustainability here. And can you give a high level summary of how your conversations went? You have a lot of ideas. I promise you we will keep track of all of those ideas, but maybe we don't have the time to read through every one of those post-it notes at this forum.
Sure. Thanks, Rebecca. With sustainability, we had a lot of great ideas like Rebecca mentioned. The topic ranked pretty much 90%, I would say, high on everyone's list. Everyone felt that sustainability plays a role in all the areas that we're discussing today. Some of the highest priority items were to address food deserts, green job development, increasing public transportation options. Many people felt that inner city residents, there's some inequity in terms of transportation, getting to places through the bus system. There could be things like a light rail system. We also had the idea mentioned of increasing bus routes and maybe limiting the bus sizes. We discussed many ideas of improving bicycle and pedestrian access, bike lanes that continue out of the city as much as they come into the city. And we got into talking about weatherization of homes as well, and how making them more weatherized increases the sustainability and less use of fossil fuels and natural resources. And also the New York State has recently in 2019 passed the New York Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. And some of the funding could be used to help the county strive for those goals. Some of the project ideas that I didn't mention, maybe an anaerobic composting facility. People felt that recycling could be improved in terms of recycling glass and plastics, that the plastic containers that you buy at the grocery stores, maybe having encouraging plastics that we could recycle would be a very good step in the right direction. The other thing, tree planting and any kind of minimizing emissions from county facilities. Somebody had the idea to put solar panels on, encouraging solar panels on any kind of strip malls or areas where there's commercial development. And just using solar geothermal as much as we can. And Phil, I think they covered everything, but if you have anything else to add, feel free to jump in.
Thank you, Steve. Yep. You had a robust conversation, clearly. All right, let's see. So we're going to go up to economic recovery, and then we'll finish out the conversation with public health and wellness. Thank you to those of you who are interested and able to stay with us. Oh my, so we have a lot to talk about with economic recovery.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Pat. Quinn and I facilitated this session, which was rich and nuanced as well. A couple of the high-level things, of course, people thought it was extremely important. They ranked it highly. There were a few people who indicated that it was very hard to rank these and that they would do a 1A, 1B situation with workforce development as they are so closely tied. That was seconded by at least one person. And then someone also mentioned that it is second only to public health and wellness related to the pandemic. And so that was how many people thought it goes. There was another issue, and we have some nuance here in terms of rankings. So you'll see those notes and can read those. What are the highest priorities? Across the board, it was to make sure that both individuals and small businesses, which it was noted that they represent 40% of the jobs in Monroe County, need to be the highest priority. And that we need to make sure that people have income to maintain and continue on with their lives and take care of their needs, necessities, and wants. But then they also mentioned that that's not equal for everyone. And so that there are specific issues that we could focus on related to minority-owned small businesses, also individuals who have poor or low credit. They are often, they receive predatory lending and other issues. If there's a way that a funding could be set up to remove that predatory funding and allow for funding that is still at a market rate, but would be able to make sure that people can get the chance to grow wealth and move forward, even if they've had poor issues or issues in the past, with their credit or loans. And then also people mentioned the need to tie public health and human services with economic recovery, because without addressing some of those issues first, you'll never get on the road to economic recovery individually and potentially as a society. And then also I'll jump into projects and ideas, but Quinn's going to weigh in here briefly as well. So we had a robust conversation about debt and issues related to that, and how we need to figure out ways to both help people repair their credit after they've had a stumble, but also make sure that people who with poor credit aren't seen as essentially clients for the subprime and other lending areas that really then keep them in these cycles of poverty when something goes wrong and they stumble in that new loan situation. And some ideas about that were, how do we upskill people so that way while they're working, while they're doing whatever they're doing, we allow them to go to school, gain new skills, but we provide them a financial incentive that allows them to maintain their normal standard of life rather than having to drop, or if there's an issue related to, a mechanic, lien or anything like that, they have the funding to move forward without having to drop the program that they're participating in. And I will leave it there. And Quinn, is there anything else I didn't mention that you would like to weigh in on?
Thank you, Pat. I think you covered most of the big and common topics that we hit pretty well. The consumer debt relief and aid was a huge one that we touched on, and assisting people avoid credit traps and not only be able to get themselves out of debt, but then to use either their newfound knowledge or improve credit scores using either conventional credit score systems or some sort of new system on a county or local level to start their own businesses and to help benefit the economy of the county and various communities around here. We had tons of ideas, and I tried to pull out the main ones to the bottom here, but you covered it very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your work. All right. Last but not least, but still a robust conversation as well, is public health and wellness. So let's see if I can zoom in on each one in a helpful way. Rochelle.
Okay.
Maggie.
I think we had about 15 people who put health and wellness as the top priority amongst these 6 categories. There was a lot of acknowledging that all of these things are connected. So while people would say this is number 1, but it's close to this one, and they're really connected. In terms of the highest priorities within public health and wellness, we had wages as being important, and especially for health employees, and help to get health workers educated, like maybe have grants for them to attend school, to address the physical and mental health needs of everyone in the justice system. Another one was high quality childcare and non-traditional hours. And as a category, considering aging and the needs of the aging in terms of their access to community is important, and the design of the buildings that they're in, as well as the deaf and hard of hearing community, especially as they age, would like their own, specific or things tied to their needs in terms of a community center. We had ideas for affordable supportive housing, COVID and HIV testing in community places like barbershops, health and wellness facilities in the city center. And one idea that was new to me is mental health first aid training, and requiring that of municipal employees. And that's the highlights.
Thank you. This
And
is,
maybe Chan, would you like to add anything?
Oh, I'm good. You covered everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. So we have officially gone about 12 minutes over the prescribed time. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for giving us your time. We all know how valuable that is, and your input and ideas are critical to our success. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sacrificing your lunch hour for us and for our community. And I hope that this was fruitful for you. I hope that you felt as if you have been listened to and have been heard. I assure you that we are taking all of these suggestions and ideas very seriously. Not that we're going to be able to do all of them. We need many more millions of dollars to do that. But our goal is to make an impact, and we cannot do that without your voices. So with that, thank you for your time. Thank you for giving us your time, and fill out the surveys, fill out the community statements, and email us if you have questions at bringmonroeback at monroecounty.gov. And thank you everybody for your time. Have a great rest of your day.